Well, it's a new year, and with the new year comes New Year's resolutions. But we all know that New Year's resolutions tend to fail, don't they? First week of January, gym is packed. First week of February, it's back to its normal levels. So a new year is a good time to try and make changes. But how might we make changes in our spiritual lives? How might we go deeper in our faith in 2019? Well, I've got 5 things I'd like to suggest to you that might help those New Year's resolutions in regards to your faith actually come to fruition this year. The first one is focus on the micro, forget the macro. And what I mean by that is focus on the small things and not worry so much about the big things. Focus on the small things, like saying your prayers today, spending time with your family today, going to church this week. Focus on the small daily and weekly items, and before you know it, you'll be reaching the goals and the desires that you have in the big picture, in the macro. Secondly, pick 1 or 2 things to work on in your life. It can be very overwhelming to try to work on eating habits, exercise, spiritual life, professional life, all at once. And that's why a lot of resolutions fail. Focus on 1 or 2 things that you need to work on in your life and go deep into those. Thirdly, pay attention to your thoughts. Don't let every thought that comes your way take up residence in your noggin. Be very selective about what you allow to live up there. And one of the reasons we call the podcast that I do, the 4-8 Revolution, is the verse in Philippians 4:8 that talks about taking captive our thoughts, to think on these things that are holy and praiseworthy. And those are the things that we should allow to take up residence in our minds. Fourthly, be done with complaining. I know some people, it seems like their favorite pastime is complaining. They're complaining about everything always. And I don't think that's the kind of life we are called to live. St. Paul even warns us not to do anything with arguing or complaining. It's a good reminder, because complaining takes our focus off of God and puts our focus on our problems, and that's not helpful. So be done with complaining. And lastly, forgive. Forgiveness is a hallmark of the Christian. Jesus has asked, how often shall I forgive my brother? 7 times, which seemed really generous. And Jesus says, no, 70 times 7. Forgive us our trespasses, he tells us to pray, as we forgive those who trespass against us. St. Paul tells us in Colossians 3 to forgive as we have been forgiven in Christ. So I would encourage you, if there is someone you need to forgive, to work on forgiving them. And that may be an easy process. It may be a long, prayerful, counsel-driven process. But my hope is that we will be forgiving people as the people of God. So, 5 ways to try to help you this year go deeper into your life of discipleship. If you want to learn more about this, join me for the 4-8 Revolution podcast this week, where I talk about those 5 things much more in depth. We also talk about St. Francis de Sales and the introduction to the devout life. So I hope you'll join me.